Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/practicalguitarist or on Twitter as @practguitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Hello. Wait, there's nobody else to say hello to. Jim flew solo for most of this episode. I thought I would record a little bumper, disclaimer, and explanation as to why I couldn't appear. So I have a small flood going on in my living room, and I ended up having to cut drywall, remove insulation. My wife actually stripped the carpet in our living area, and I've been on the phone with both the insurance company and my property management company and association for the last, it's been about 4 days now. It's been fun. Not the way I'd want to spend my time, but a way I have nonetheless. So I've got some new stuff going on. I thought I'd bump in the beginning of the episode and remind people to join our Facebook group. You can find all sorts of information about the podcast. You can interact with Jim and I and the wonderful listeners of the show, including many of our Patreon subscribers. And you can figure out how to support the show, albeit through things like subscribing to the podcast and joining Patreon, or buying stuff from our Threadless store, or clicking our Amazon affiliate link, or any of those different things. Great ways to support the show. This show is about you guys less than it is about us, although we do like to make it about ourselves a lot. So just wanted to kind of jump in here and promote myself a little bit. I have a demo coming out of my songs I've been performing at these open mic shows here in the Chicago area. The demo's name is Ramblings of a Madman, and you can find it on iTunes currently. It'll be up on Spotify and a lot of the other services later in the week. It's been a project I've been working on for quite some time, and it's actually really cool to see it come to fruition. These songs are not the final recordings. I fully intend at some point I'll be sitting down with a real band and actually recording them for real, maybe in a studio environment. But for right now, these serve as the calling card, a business card for what I do. And so if you'd like to check them out, you can find me on iTunes as David M. Hill. And by the way, if you join our Facebook group, I'm pretty sure there's a link in there. I also have a Facebook page, David M. Hill, on Facebook. Actually, I believe it's David Hill Music on Facebook. I encourage you to join that if you're interested as well. So I don't know exactly what Jim talked about this week. I have a feeling he talked about Gibson, as Jim tends to do. I don't really have much to say about it myself. I think this is not a surprise, and you'll see, what the topic really is. But hopefully, next week, things will be settling down. We'll be back to normal. I can talk about a lot of my musical endeavors that are happening in the last week, which things are moving very quickly. And we can talk maybe some more theory stuff. So, thanks everyone for tuning in and listening to me ramble at the beginning of the episode. Hopefully, Jim recorded enough of an episode to keep you guys tided over until next week. And with that, I have been a practical guitarist.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim, and welcome to this week's podcast, which will be relatively short because I'm not very good at talking to myself, and David is not feeling well this week. So in the news, Gibson, as some of you have known, has taken down all of their content from YouTube. So if you go to Gibson Guitar at youtube.com/user/Gibson Guitar Corp, there is nothing. Why is this? We're not really sure. Some rumors had floated around, and I'd heard the same thing on Phil McKnight's podcast, Know Your Gear, his live podcast, which unfortunately he was taken off guard live, and he received an email from somebody who said that Mark Agnesi had been let go. According to Mark Agnesi's Twitter page, there are a bunch of rumors about me floating around the internet, the worst of which is that I don't like offsets. That's totally untrue. I think offsets, I think non-reverse Firebirds are totally rad. And so is this Marshall amp. He shows it. And then he goes on to say that he has not been let go from Gibson. So that is unfounded. And he is still listed as Mark Agnesi, internet personality and director of brand experience for Gibson guitars. So, what's going on this week? Well, that was pretty much all the news I could find. And I really don't have a lot to put out. So this week for me, I've got the pickups out of my Telecaster, and I'm installing the new ones this week. And what I want to try to do is I'm going to give it to as many guitar players as I can give it to at open mics and different situations over the next week and a half to 2 weeks. And I'm going to have them all play it. And then I'm going to interview them and ask them all the same questions. And the questions will be about how they think the pickups sounded in this Squier guitar. How did the Squier guitar feel to them? I didn't want to do a side-by-side Squier to new pickup test because everybody's heard 10,000 recordings of a Squier. So there's enough of them all over the internet that you don't need to hear one more person play one more crappy solo on a Squier to say, yeah, I know what a Squier sounds like, Jim. I've heard Andertons do it every year for the last so many years, and I've heard every other place do it, Dawson's, and so on and so forth. I don't need to hear your cruddy playing. So what I want to do is get some recordings of people who are playing it live and on stage with bands, and then get their reactions to what they thought, they felt that the Squier sounded like. So that's my my thing to try to get, so that it's a little bit different and it's something that's more focused to, is this the kind of tone that you'd want to get if you were to buy a set of pickups for a Squier Telecaster. So, or any Telecaster for that matter. These are replacement Telecaster pickups. So, geez, in other news, I'm hosting an open mic on Monday. And I really don't have a whole lot that's going on. There's been no real... Oh, I bought a mixer. That's exciting. I bought a 12-channel mixer. Geez, there's not a whole lot. So this week, I'll be doing the open mic stuff, like I said, taking the Telecaster out. So if you've got any questions that you'd like to see me ask people, please go ahead and put them in the group, the podcast group, because then I'd like to get your response to what you think that you'd like to have me ask, because as I go on, I'll be asking the same people, well, different people, but all these same people, same questions. So it'll be interesting. Tomorrow night, this will be before the podcast releases, I'll be taking it out to an open mic that I'm hosting again. And I'm going to do some solo work with it, and then I'll ask people if they want to play it, and then I'll ask them what they thought. So I'll get some video of myself, some video of them, so on and so forth. It's really important to me to get that stuff going on. So you probably wonder, why did it take you so long to change out the pickups in this thing? And the truth is that I guess this is as good a week as any to share. That I've been down in the dumps lately for the last few months. My house is empty, with the exception of my stuff, obviously. But this is the first time that I haven't had kids in my home for 24 years. So it's kind of a weird feeling. My son moved to New York, and he was living here with me. So I'm here alone with the dog, who you'll hear sometimes walking around. And though I try to be my normal bubbly self on the podcast, it's kind of, I've never been empty nested. Well, I shouldn't say never. I haven't been empty nested for 24 years. And before that, I was married for 9 years. Well, I was still married, but my wife and I don't live in the same home. She works and lives in New York, and I work and live in Virginia, and we see each other once in a while. But this is the first time that I've truly been on my own since I was like 18. And then, when you're 18, you live with your family, So, yeah, it's a different feeling. So I kind of get down in the dumps, and I know I have to do things, and I put them off, and it kind of shows in the things that I have to get done work-wise and personally. I try to run away from my problems instead of dealing with them head-on. So that's what I've been doing lately. And in other news, there is a lot going on, obviously, in the world of praise and worship for me. So you guys know about the fact that I've been doing the church thing on a weekly basis. And I'm the only musician and the only singer, which means that every week I have to get 4 new songs together. Well, they're not new, they're old, most of them really old hymns. And they come straight from the hymn roll. I take them, I break them apart, put them back together for guitar. Although they give me the chords are really meant to be played in a band setting and not solo. So they don't always translate, Therefore, sometimes it doesn't sound as good as it could. So, I've been changing things up. Well, and that's the other news, in the church thing, I've been dealing with the fact that the guitar player who was there before lost the position. Not because of me. I'm not better, that's for sure. I'm not trying to claim to be. But they didn't want to, business-wise, they didn't want to work with the church because they don't do a choir. He doesn't do a choir. He does not have another musician. So he doesn't have a keyboardist, doesn't have another guitar player. Shows up for... within about 5 minutes of the start of service, clips the microphone onto the pastor, starts the service, and leaves an hour and 5 or so minutes later. So they're trying to get him to sign a new contract because he doesn't choir direct, he doesn't musically direct, and they were kind of down in dumps about that. So then he started some drama with the church, had to be asked by a policeman to leave, was threatened to be escorted out, and that kind of put the dampers on a lot of people. So anyway, so that's that went on in the church, and they're supposed to have a meeting next week. So I've been asked for my own safety to stay away next week, just so that they can discuss things with him. They've invited him to come back and then discuss things, and then may or may not stay. We'll see what happens after next week. So that's other news. And that's, it's crazy because you think the church is supposed to be about worship, and this person has made it his personal vendetta to make sure he gets paid. And I don't know. I guess that's neither here nor there. I think I'd rather give my week, my hour and whatever during the each week than to worry about whether or not I was getting paid for it. But that's me, and that's the way I am. So, in other news, I auditioned for another band this week. It was kind of on a whim. They're all Navy guys. They're all active duty, which I thought was interesting. All chiefs or senior chiefs, master chiefs. So I think there is a first class petty officer. But anyway, they're all good guys. And I don't know if it was weird. I went in, auditioned as a lead guitar player. I would replace the guy that's leaving in 6 months. We'll see how that goes. If they ask me to return, or if they say no, we don't really need you. And we did some interesting music. We did everything from Chicken Fried, which is a song I actually knew but didn't know I knew. And it's kind of a bro country throwback thing. All the way up to Walk This Way from Aerosmith to, interestingly enough, on the other end of the spectrum from Chicken Fried would be Killing in the Name. So, interesting stuff. I'd never played Killing in the Name, so if nothing else, it was a bit of an adventure for me. The other guy had a drop pedal. So when he went to do a drop tuning, I didn't know, and so I would look over at him, and so I got to see. I would say, okay, I'm looking down at the pedal to see if it's on, because if the pedal was on, he was down a half step. So that was fun. Threw me off a couple times, but I learned very quickly not to just follow his fingers. And besides, I try to use different chord shapes, so I try to stay out of the way of the other person that's playing. When there's two guitar players, I don't want to be playing the same piece as he is. So that was interesting. My band Sure Thing has a gig coming up. Private party. It should be fun. I'm not really sure how it's going to turn out. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast, but the bass player has been a little weird. So I have been on the fence about sticking around. I like the music, but if I'm going to play pop music, I want to do popular pop music, not pop music that people don't know, that just happened to get an AM hit once in, say, 1973, and nothing since. So there's that. Let's see. So not a lot of guitar news. I had a friend reach out to me this week. He sent me a picture of a pedal I'd never seen before, and asked me, "What does this pedal do for me?" It was for his bass, and I could see that it had a weirdest thing. It had a 5-band EQ for the compressor and a 5-band EQ for EQ, and I was like, "Well, the compressor side's a compressor limiter, but I've never seen it where it compressed particular frequency bands." I thought that was interesting. I said, but that's what it's for. It's so you can compress your audio, but it's going to compress the bands. So be careful about setting it strangely, because you could get where you get your, it could be useful, because if you're playing bass, obviously you may want to compress the low mids to lows, but let those highs just fly away. And that way you can get some dynamics in your sounds, a dynamic range. And of course the EQ is an EQ, just EQ it the way you want. I said I never EQ'd my bass. I'd flat it out, If I like the bass's pickups, it was because I like the bass's pickups. And if I like a bass amp, it's because I like the bass amp. I don't worry about putting an EQ in my inline. And that's personal preference, I think. Comes to playing bass, everybody's got their own little things. It seems that when I play my Fenders, I've been kind of EQing that high end off a little bit. Especially on the Telly and the Strat. The high end seems to be a little too sparkly sometimes, and I cut it back just a little bit. Just enough to let the mid-range come out a little bit. But that's because I guess I'm really a humbucker person, and I like the sound of the humbuckers. DSG, I don't do as much of that. So, geez, I don't have anybody to say to, hey, what have you got this week? Well, I've got this. This is why I didn't do a solo podcast, by the way, because I really didn't want to have to sit and talk news myself. So, the fact is that outside of the things that I do on a weekly basis, there's not really a whole lot of stuff that I look at in guitar-related news. There's just not a whole lot that happens this time of year. We're kind of in a lull before we hit our peak, which is NAMM coming up, and people start seeing announcements and so on and so forth. But we do have Christmas coming, and that's a time of year where people we'll probably do. David and I will do a little thing about how every year we wind up with stuff that may or may not have anything to do with the fact that we play guitar. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. And I guess that's really so for tomorrow night. I'm looking at what kind of music I want to do. I'll probably do Mary Jane's Last Dance. I like that song. It's interesting. It's fun. And I'll probably stick to that vein of music. I want to do stuff that will really show off the new pickups in the Telecaster. So I don't imagine that I would do anything really too particularly strange for, like, I wouldn't do anything acoustically. So I'm bringing the little Cube 40. I won't mic it. I won't even put it in the PA. The place is so small, Cube 40 will be fine. I'll sit it up on a table and and just run it that way, because it's way loud enough for a solo act. I'm thinking I might do like where I put the Jam Man in line, and that way I can do like a couple little solo things over top of it. I gotta be careful because you can't change the tone too much because there's no loop in the Cube. So if you're gonna put a looper pedal in, you want to usually put it in your loop, so that your effects loop, so that when you go to change your channel and give it a little distortion or whatever, it doesn't affect the sound that you had already put into the looper, effectively pre-recorded into the looper. And really, I guess I've said everything that there is to say this week. So I appreciate the fact that you tuned in. I apologize about the short episode, but David's got flooding to deal with. He's got he's sick. I was sick earlier this week. I had the flu, I think. I do know this. I still got probably hear it in my voice, but I've still got a bit of a runny nose and sneezing, coughing, that type of thing. So I can say that if you get your flu shot this year, it's a good idea. Make sure you're washing your hands a lot. I wash my hands constantly, and I still get this bug. But I think it's because I work from home a lot, and because I do, I don't really, get the feeling. Okay, so I'm going to read you a couple of comments I saw on this gearnews.com. One person said, why have all the Gibson official YouTube videos been pulled, and where is Mark Agnesi? Who cares? I would never buy a Gibson. The build quality is horrendous. Okay. Why have all the... That's still something that hasn't been answered. I agree. Phil McKnight has never stated that it was to be true that Agnesi was fired. He quoted what a fan stated to him. He didn't actually say it was a fan. He said it was somebody in the know. That's what he said. I remember hearing it. So anyway, and that he was going to check into the truth. I don't imagine that somebody would... The announcement, well, it could happen on a Friday afternoon, I suppose, but I don't know. I do know that people tend to blow a lot of Gibson news out of proportion, and it seems that anything that happens with Gibson is like this incredible, negative that goes on. That people have got to go after Gibson constantly. And I wonder if the reason that they pulled their YouTube videos is because they don't really have a lot of subscribers. They've got 132,000 subscribers. There's tons of YouTube channels that have more subscribers than a company like Gibson. And so I'm not really sure that they care about the YouTube channel. And maybe they're redoing the channel in an attempt to try to bring people in. Because to be honest, if you look at I think Phil McKnight, Know Your Guitar, has got some hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Let's see, Daryl Braun has 439,000. And Eddie Heinzelman, who's a guitar player, has 459. Oh, sorry. I was trying to find somebody bigger. I ran across the wrong guy. Joe Satriani has 241,000. Let's see. Music is Win, who's has got 822,000. Phil McKnight has 233,000. So these other channels have tons more subscribers. Pete Thorne has more subscribers. So I think that it's starting to turn to where maybe Gibson is turning its sites elsewhere. 12 Tone, which is a great site, by the way. I recommend it. the number 12 Tone, the word tone, no space. 12 Tune has 293,000. If you're looking for stuff on some of the music theory that we talk about, 12 Tone is definitely a place to look. And if I had to recommend another place, there's a place called I'm looking it up here because it's Signals Music Studios, which has 279,000 subscribers. And Jake over there is awesome. If you're into playing guitar and trying to write your own songs and find rules that you can use and break, those are great places to go. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. I want to thank our Patreon supporters. I want to thank Nick Bongers at Great Lakes Guitar Pickups for sponsoring the channel. And I hope that you guys check out this coming week's content, because I'll be on hopefully on Twitter. Guys, I'm really bad about Twitter. I'm horrible at it. I'm your penultimate 50-something trying to use Twitter because I just don't care about it. And so I should, because it's a useful tool. I really should, but I don't. I don't use it. I think I've used the little Animoji thing on my new cell phone more than I've used Twitter ever. Anyway, so check out the new content that's coming up this week, and next week it'll all be revolving around the Telecaster and what people are thinking about it. I'm hoping that I can learn how to use the little interview mode on my new iPhone, so that I can have like myself already inserted into the interview, so I can interview people and you can see them in the frame and me in the frame without me having to do any special video editing. That's just, hopefully that works the way that they showed it on the videos for the new iPhone, because that's why I bought the darn thing, right? So, have a good day. I've been Jim, and I've been your practical guitarist.